Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of 1v1 Me. This time we've got Glad in the hot seat, so I'm excited to talk to him and let you get to know him on a better level. A couple of things real quick. I'm sick as a dog. I apologize. My voice is raspy. Luckily, he's doing almost all the talking, so that's a good thing. Second thing, about 13 minutes in, there's a little bit of adult content, and I figured it would be impolite to censor my guest. So just keep that in mind if you are watching with your kids or something like that. Last thing I would say is we're doing a ViewSonic gaming monitor giveaway. So if you want to participate in that, it's very, very simple. All you got to do is go to ViewSonic Gaming on Instagram. They've got a post there with my name on it talking about a giveaway. All you got to do is comment hashtag TVG and then tag somebody. That's it. That's literally it. And you've got a few days to enter that, and then you can win a like several $100 monitor. All right. Hope you enjoy the episode. Well, today we've got Glad in the hot seat. Happy to have you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, dude.
Yeah, how you been passing the time on stream these days as you wait for Shadowkeep's arrival?
Yeah, so I don't want to call it a mistake that some people just want all full in on the solstice, but I've been doing it super casually.
Yeah.
Like I just upgraded my second solstice character to the purple gear. Yeah, so I'm just been doing it really casually, not trying to blow through the content. That's pretty much it. Other than that, the typical challenges and speed runs that we do as a clan. So.
Sure. I've been taking my time with the solstice armor as well. I just now got my first purple set, so
there you go. See,
I'm a little behind.
You still have, 8 days to finish them?
Yeah, I got plenty of time. So I'll probably do, I think, maybe just 2 sets and call that good.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any interest in the Borderlands series at all? Will you be playing 3 when it launches?
So I wasn't going to because of Shadowkeep release, but since Shadowkeep got changed, I will be.
Okay.
So, because now it gives us, 2 weeks or something to play it? 2 or 3, something like that?
Yeah, like 3 to 4, won't we?
Is it? Wow. Well, it comes out... Oh gosh, I don't even remember. What's the release date on it? Isn't it like the second week in September?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so around 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
Did you ever play the previous titles?
I played Borderlands 2 a little bit, just kind of ran around and shot some stuff, but never really took it seriously or anything like that. So I'm going to try to snag somebody that knows what they're doing and show me the ways a little bit. But that'll occupy the last half of my September for sure. Cool. At least I plan on it.
Yeah. So not a huge Borderlands gamer, but what other games maybe got you sort of started in your gaming hobby? What early titles formed those habits for you?
That goes way back, man. I've been gaming ever since I can remember.
Okay.
To be honest, I remember having an Atari way back in the day. So I was born in '88.
Same.
So
yeah.
Really? Nice.
Yeah, I had an Atari. We played Joust all the time, me and my brother.
Yep. So an Atari was around. I just, remember the very basic games as a real little kid. But what really, what got me into gaming a little bit more heavily was Nintendo and Super Nintendo. So that's when I started playing games like the really old school Zeldas. I used to play this Barney hide and seek game a lot too. I was a Barney kid growing up. Barney, Power Rangers, all that stuff.
There's no shame there.
Nah, not at all. It was funny. You hid from Barney, and then he had to come find you.
Some of those
weird.
Some of those early Nintendo games specifically were so good for families. Like me and my brother, we just sit down. Even we did Sega, we did Super Nintendo.
Yep.
So, and a lot of those early titles had multiplayer functions that we just loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we did Sega too. Lots of Sonic, and then got really attached to this game called Pugsy, which was like a puzzle adventure game.
Okay.
Actually, mainly just a puzzle game, and that's really got me into puzzle games. And then Zelda got me into the adventure exploration games. But what really changed my life is what I think the best system ever made. Feel free to take a guess.
The Dreamcast.
No. Nintendo 64.
Yeah, oh yeah.
In my opinion, is the best system that was ever made for gaming. The first system to really bring to life 3-dimensional characters and worlds and be able to rotate around your character in ways that you normally couldn't. And that introduced me to games like GoldenEye, which gave you that competitive fire, and that introduced me to games like Ocarina of Time, which I think is the best video game ever made and my personal favorite.
Fantastic title. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Majora's Mask. You know, just the list. Nintendo 64. The list just goes on. I could sit here and list games all day.
Sure.
And then after that, I switched over to you know, typical. Went onto PlayStation, played all those types of you know, games. I got heavily into Tomb Raider in PlayStation. And then eventually decided to make the switch over to Xbox. So I did end up branching the Xbox direction in like middle school, high school.
Yeah.
And then the big game that got me into more competitive was Call of Duty.
Okay.
So I pretty much played every Call of Duty pretty heavily all the way up through Ghost. After Call of Duty Ghosts, I sort of left the franchise. I just wasn't, you know, it I don't know. I feel like the game's changed. Yeah, it just, I don't know. And a lot of people can relate to what I'm trying to say here. And then after Call of Duty, I was really looking for something just really fun to play. So I got into Mass Effect, and this was like after I had graduated college. So I was definitely late on the Mass Effect grind. Loved Mass Effect, and because of the whole, you know, role-playing elements of Mass Effect and just kind of shooting aliens, pew pew pew, somebody had recommended to me Destiny. So I had picked up Destiny, played Destiny, beat the story, got to max level, said, all right, cool. That was a fun game. That was awesome. Hit up my friends. I was like, yeah, thanks for the recommendation, dude. That was pretty cool. And my friends are like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, I just beat the game last night. I mean, it wasn't as good as Mass Effect, but it was pretty cool. And they're like,
you're just starting.
Yeah. They're like, get back. I knew nothing about Destiny. And they're like, just get back on. And this was right before Crota came out. They're like, get on. We're going to take you through a raid. And I'm like, what the heck is this? Like, it's a thing that you can only do when you reach a certain, you know, what was it, light level back then. So they took me through Vault of Glass, and I mean, that completely changed my life.
Sure.
Like 100%. I'd never seen anything like that. And even though I don't think Vault of Glass is Destiny's best raid ever, I think it was such a good like entrance, such a good you know, showing you what Destiny raids were going to be about going forward.
Yeah,
I'm so glad it was. Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad it was Vault of Glass and literally not any other raid.
Sure.
You know.
It's funny you bring up Mass Effect. I was late to the Mass Effect grind too. I was post graduation, couple years into marriage, and I had a motorcycle accident, and I was supposed to basically stay bedridden for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so my wife, she was like, well, I bought you these 2 games that are on sale, Mass Effect 1 and 2. And I was like, I've never played them. It's fine. So I had these 2 weeks where I was just laying in bed playing the Mass Effect series. And I started with 2, went back and played 1.
That's the best one.
Oh, 2 was so good. And then doubled back and I did like 3 more playthroughs of 2. And that's actually where my gamer tag comes from, because I chose the Vanguard class in Mass Effect 2. Yeah, so I always get the people who are like, well, why'd you name yourself Destiny Vanguard if you play PvP? And it's like, well, you know, that was way before Destiny.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So at what point did you start thinking about making your own content, streaming?
Yeah. So I think where it all stemmed was we were doing a Vault of Glass clear. I don't know if it was my very first one, but it was one of my very first. And we had 2 people go down. Okay. And I was currently playing with one of my clanmates now, Iron, who is also in Redeem, obviously. And I was kind of just gave up on the fight when people went down. And then my one friend was like, no, at the time my name was Gladiator, so we can talk about that if you want. But I ran over, and my buddy was like, all right, Glad, go, you got to go over there. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? We have people down, don't we have to reset? And he's like, no, we can like clutch up and finish this. And I'm like, wait a second. You're telling me that we don't need all 6 people to complete this? And it was the encounter where you had to hold down the 3 spires. What was that called? I always forget what it's called. Not Oracles, not Templar. The other one.
Right before Atheon.
Yeah. Well, no. It was the one in the same Templar room where you had to hold down the 3 points, and they would try to sacrifice.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't remember what that encounter was called, but no,
I can't remember either. I'm so stupid. But So right then I was like, oh my God. So I hit up Iron afterwards and I said, dude, do you want to try to work our way through Vault of Glass, but with just 2 people? You know,
Hmm.
like if we don't need a full group, why go through a full group? Let's challenge ourselves. Because growing up, I was always about, how can I do Zelda faster? How can I play Mario Kart and beat the time trial world records? I always wanted
Hmm.
to challenge myself and make the game more difficult because the games, there were wonderful games, but sometimes the games were a little bit easy and it was more fun to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the whole idea behind sort of low manning stuff, as we call it in the Destiny PvE challenge community or soloing stuff began. So then Crota came out, and I had practiced doing solo damage on Crota, and this is my first ever YouTube video. It's called 7 Hits, 1 Sword on Crota solo.
Okay.
And it's me taking Crota down twice, hitting him 4 times, picking or dropping the sword, taking Crota down a second time, hitting him 3 more times, and getting out alive. And I was like super proud of that. I'm like, this is
Sure.
crazy. You can solo this guy, you know what I mean? And I put it on a YouTube channel. I just made a YouTube channel real quick. I put it up and I went to my friends. I was like, hey guys, check it out. I'm just going to start putting random clips on here because it's fun to do this stuff. And some random dude commented on my video and he said, you should go for the 1 sword solo. You have to take him down 3 times and you have to get 12 and a half hits on him. So you have to go, or no, 11 and a half. So you have to go 4, 4, 3 and a half.
Okay.
So I spent 9 hours, stayed up all night, called off work. I was working pharmaceutical sales at the time.
Okay.
So I had like a good job in DC, and I finally got this, and it was my first ever challenge. 9 hours. I was so ecstatic. I stayed up till like 7 in the morning, put it on my YouTube channel,
Yeah.
went to bed, and that sort of stemmed the whole YouTube. So I started on YouTube for sure. Then I started paying attention to Destiny's Reddit. And I started sort of commenting on things in Reddit, acquiring Reddit karma. If I did anything small on the YouTube channel, I would post it on Reddit and say, hey guys, check this out. What do you think? Like, I thought this was pretty cool. This took me a certain amount of time. So, then Reddit and YouTube started building off of each other a little bit. And then I found out about Twitch. So this really wasn't that long ago. This was like sometime after the Crota DLC and before the Taken King. So I started paying attention to people like Slayer, Tfue, and HMO5. Those were the first 3 that I really started watching because they seemed to be interested in the same sort of things that I was interested in. So started subbing to those guys, following them, pay attention to them, started being really active in their chats. And then I sort of looked at the business end of Twitch and realized the potential there.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, if these numbers are correct, this is actually absurd. Like you can play video games for a living and actually feed yourself and put a house over your head plus more, So I sort of became very interested early on. And my first ever Twitch stream was just a friend who said, hey, I want to watch you play this puzzle game. Can you just start up a stream with your name? And I just want to watch you like solve these puzzles because this is one of my favorite games. And that was like my first stream ever to just one of my friends.
Now, was that like
a
and
that's how I really got
Gladiator, or did you make the transition to Glad at that point?
No, I was still Gladiator 182.
Okay.
Huge Blink-182 fan, and Gladiator stemmed, funny story, first ever porn store I went into. It was one of the first pornos that I found, and it was called Glad He Ate Her. And it was a guy dressed up as a gladiator with this like girl on her knees, and he was standing there, super corny, like 80s porn stuff. And I just thought it was the funniest thing. I'm like, glad he ate her, gladiator. So I made my gamer tag that.
So let me transition then. You post some of the most outlandish things, like on Insta and Twitter. And has that always been sort of part of your character? I know some people have actually said, "Oh, he's an acquired taste, but I really like his content."
Yeah, so I've always been very, very strange, very weird, and I've always been called weird like all throughout high school and college, but in a good way. Like people are never like, oh, like he's a weirdo. It was just always like, Glad, you're such a fucking weirdo. Like, why do you do shit like this all the time? It was more like that sort of vibe. But always I've been very, very very friendly to everybody. Never wanted to fit myself into a clique or anything
Sure.
like that. I was always very accepting. Never wanted to judge anybody. Always knew that everybody had something to offer and everybody had their own story. And one of my biggest, gripes with, I guess, humans, so to speak, is people tend to judge people very heavily.
Hmm.
And I say, why don't you get to know people and get to learn about them a little bit and learn about their story. And so I just kind of always have this sort of fuck it attitude where I don't really care what people think about me. I'm going to be myself. And if I want to be weird and goofy or say really awkward stuff or off the wall stuff or really
Just slap
immature
your junk
stuff.
with bacon.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. To get, whether it's to get a reaction out of people or just because I feel like being weird or anything like that. It's what makes me me.
Hmm.
And that's the same thing with everybody. People might hold back on doing things because they don't want to feel judged. And I say,
Yeah.
fuck that, like be yourself. People are going to love you for who you are. I always end all of my streams by saying, thank you guys for being you. Cause that's why we love you. And that's why we're here. And, we have a very free spirited attitude in all of my streams. And that carries over to, the Instagram and all stuff like that. Very, very non-judgmental where people can just be themselves and
Yeah.
not feel like, I don't know. I may have gone on a little tangent there.
No, that's all good. No, that's why you're here.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: who have been some of the major supporters for you in your journey as you branched into content creation?
Yeah. So I wish I could say my parents, but it's funny because it's really hard explaining to your parents that this is something that you want to do
Yeah.
and have their full support when you're coming from a job like pharmaceutical sales where
Mhm.
you have,
You
the
got that
full
security.
package.
Sure.
Yeah. So they're like, okay, are you sure? You know what I mean? But I have had early on, you said, I'm going to try to focus on that. Early on, a lot of support has not only been from my close friends that got me into Destiny,
Yeah.
but just a few people in particular that were able to help me get through that. When you start up streaming full time, you got to make a lot of sacrifices. You got to sacrifice a lot of your money to get your rigs put together and your whole setup. Even though my early subs were super jank. But there were a couple people that were just so supportive and whether it was, a $50 donation here or there, or, making sure that they subbed really early on. I know my two earliest subs are, if they ever watch this, Polar Bear and Assassin. So early on, they were just always making sure that I had what I needed and that they were supporting me, when I wasn't even able to pay my rent. I almost got evicted 4 months in a row last year. In like July. I mean, it was rough. Last year, early summer was a very rough time for me.
I believe it.
But because of all the support that I had from people, they were able to help keep my head above water, so that I could, put all of my personal resources into streaming because that's where I wanted to head.
Your Twitch metrics are really good. I mean, for me, I remember this would be a funny story. I remember one day because you, to me, were like a dark horse. Like you came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
which will
definitely.
lead me to a follow-up question. But I remember this day. I never stream at night. I don't do night streams. I cut those out a long time ago because I've got the kids and it just makes me a zombie in the mornings. But I had this night where I was like, I don't need to be up early tomorrow, so I'm gonna do some playing. I may as well stream it. And I just did this random night stream and ended up getting this raid. And people were like, glad raid.
Oh yeah, I remember
I was
that.
I was like, holy cow, that's like a 1,200 person raid.
Yeah.
I was like, that's no joke. Who is this guy? Is he is he in some other? My first thought was he must be from a different directory.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I was like, oh, thanks so much for that raid. This is very kind. And I asked your viewership. I said, okay, what was Glad up to today? And I expected to hear like, oh, he was playing Overwatch or Apex or some other directory. And they're like, oh yeah, he's just doing the normal Destiny thing. I'm like, the normal Destiny thing? How have I never heard of somebody who has this much viewership in the Destiny community? It's like he came out of nowhere. Like, where did your break happen? When did that happen? Because maybe I was living under a rock, and I'm ashamed to say,
No,
but I had never heard of you at that point.
Yeah, no, straight up. So I think the reason that some people, like, I may have flown under the radar and creeped up is I stayed heavily in the PvE challenge community for a long time.
Hmm.
So basically, if you didn't care about speed runs, soloing raid bosses, and stuff like that, you probably didn't have any interest in the community that I was building early on.
Sure.
Um, I wasn't much of just a Destiny, I'll stream whatever, watch me level, ask me questions. It was more like, okay, every stream is going to be something super intense that is going to take me 50 hours to do,
Yeah.
So I'd stay up just days at a time with, a couple people watching me, 5, 10, 15. But then there was this Reddit post. This was way back. And it said, when is somebody going to solo Crota on Rock Band drum? And it got like 10,000 upvotes or something, but then it kind of, got buried.
Yeah.
So I hit up my buddy who had created a macro. If you remember in Destiny 1, there was this glitch where you could spam Titan hammers like a million times a second.
I do remember that, actually.
Yeah, you could literally just. Well, my buddy created a macro for it, and I hit him up and I said, "Can you create a macro so that I can use Rock Band drums for a solo attempt?" So I shipped in my laptop. I bought Rock Band drums, shipped them to his state, and then he programmed everything, shipped everything back to me in Washington, D.C., and then I hooked it up. And long story short, went into Crota, messed around with the drums, soloed Crota on Rock Band drums, put it on my, at the time was a really small YouTube channel, put it on Reddit, said, "Here you guys go. I remember you guys wanted this." Boom, went to bed. Woke up the next day, and it was trending on the internet.
It blown up.
Dude, it's freaking huge. My phone was absolutely like, could not go through all the messages. People from high school that I hadn't seen in years were like, "Dude, you're literally trending on the internet right now. What is going on? I haven't seen you in a couple of years. What are you doing with yourself?" And it is crazy. It got me like a couple hundred YouTube subs. Didn't really do much for Twitch. It was mainly just sort of YouTube and Reddit exposure a little bit.
Yeah.
So I sort of took that fire and went with it and said, okay, what else can I do to this guy? So we did voice commands where I soloed him just using my voice with a Rock Band microphone. We did blindfold solo, no help, no taking damage, full raid, backwards, and no taking, all this really quirky stuff.
Yeah.
And decided that I was going to sort of create that name for myself. But really didn't stream that much unless I was doing some sort of challenge. At the end of Destiny 1, still, 15, 20, maybe 40 viewers if no one else was on.
Yeah.
Sort of helping people through the new 390 raids. Still very small, though. Put down streaming for that summer. Moved out to Colorado. And then Destiny 2 came out. Didn't really stream Destiny 2 that much unless I was doing some sort of challenge.
Yeah.
But here is where I saw an opportunity. And this was the best decision that I ever made in my life. So Destiny 2 came out and it wasn't really in a good state.
Right.
A lot of people ditched the game. A lot of streamers, a lot of YouTubers, just a lot of content creators in general just kind of abandoned Destiny. And the directory was very, it just wasn't popping.
Mm-hmm.
And I still wanted to play the game. I still had a lot of things that I wanted to do, a lot of things that I wanted to speedrun, a lot of challenges that I wanted to do. So this was very difficult to do, but I quit my job that I had out here in Colorado, another sales job. I had already quit my pharmaceutical sales job because I kind of knew that this was something that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I started up a stream and created a Twitter like sometime earlier before that. And pretty much said to everybody, hey, listen, a lot of you may not know who I am. This is what I do. Here's some of the things that I've done. My clan already does have a world's first Wrath of the Machine title. So like we know how to game.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of the game isn't in its best spot right now, but I still love the game. And I know a lot of you do too. So I want to create a streaming environment where anybody can come hang out. Totally non-toxic, totally non-judgmental. Come in here, be goofy. We like to have fun. We do stupid shit all the time. And if you still like Destiny, we're going to be here and I'm going to be streaming every single day and I'm never going to leave. So if you still like Destiny and you're not totally upset with the state that it's in, come hang out and we can build a community together is basically what I did. And ever since then, it has just been a skyrocket.
Yeah.
Because Yeah, I don't know. I guess people really appreciated like the realness and the environment that we created together as a community on the streams, even in the darkest times of Destiny.
Sure. That's a great attitude to have, and I'm not surprised that people rallied behind it, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, other than that, the other two big breaks are the more obvious ones. World's first Spire of Stars,
Yeah.
World's first Prestige Leviathan, World's first Last Wish. I mean, those three, of which I was on the team for all three of those, just were bang, bang, bang. Just came also rapidly,
Yeah.
and I mean, it didn't hurt. You know what I mean?
These astronomical
Yeah.
like subtrains and stuff during those activities too. I remember seeing some of those where I had people in my
Dude.
chat like, "Hey, like Glad's on like a 1,500 sub streak right now," and you're like, "That's insane!" Like
Dude,
people love those events.
I can talk about how generous my community is for freaking days. I absolutely adore them, and they know it, and they know that I mean it, and they have destroyed me so many times, and it literally, like, you would think that you would get used to that stuff, but you honestly don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's every single time it happens, I'm like, guys, I'm doing bounties. You know what I mean? I'm like, you guys are insane, and I freaking love them. And every time I go home, I brag about them to my parents. I'm just like,
Yeah.
Mom, my community is so like it's mind blowing that people can be so unbelievably like generous and just selfless with their own, I guess, like money.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, man. I mean, it sort of opens your eyes up to the type of people that are out there. I mean, you hear the news is all just, you just hear a bunch of bad, negative shit. And then you start up a stream on Twitch, and then you just realize how many wonderful people are out there
Absolutely.
that are so willing to support things that they love to keep dreams alive. And I love it, man. And it fuels me every day. And it's what keeps the energy so high all the time.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, let me hit you with just a couple more questions before we wrap up.
Yeah.
One of them being, you said you're living in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do in your downtime? What part of Colorado are you in? You do any biking, climbing?
Yeah, so I live between Denver and the mountains. So about 20 minutes west of Denver. And I moved out here because, first of all, I love music, and I saw Bass Nectar out here, who's an electronic producer.
Okay.
And it just blew my mind. I came all the way out here to see him. It was a camping festival. Between the music scene out here and just the wonderful people, everybody out here is just so, compared to the East Coast, they're just way more chill and laid back and more friendly, and they're just like taking a seat and taking it all in instead of, got to do this, got to watch, got to go here, got to go here. Everybody on the East Coast is just on a move, and everyone out here I was just able to vibe with a lot more. And just the air and I don't know. I just had a really good experience. One of those epiphanies,
Yeah,
when you're,
Colorado's great.
Yeah.
We go out there pretty frequently.
Where do you go to?
Well, I've done 2 motorcycle trips through the Rockies with my wife, because we like to ride. So we tend to hit like Breckenridge, Aspen, Boulder for the breweries, like Avery Brewing is there, and Boulder Beer. We love those places. And Colorado Springs as well.
Yeah, Colorado Springs is beautiful. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned beer. I don't really drink much beer anymore because of keto, but I know that there's always the option if I do it. But like, I just went on a bunch of hikes. My parents came up here, or my mom and my sister, and we did the whole, hiking around Red Rocks, and we drove up to Mount Evans and showed them what 14,000 feet looks like.
That's great.
So, I love mountains. The only thing that Colorado doesn't give me is a beach.
Sure.
So you got to drive out to, or fly out to California for that one.
Sure, go west.
But yeah, I watch a lot of movies, probably 1 movie a day. I'm very much into a huge fitness and health freak. So I spend a lot of time outside before my streams, running, working out, jumping rope, or just sort of sitting in the sun or swimming or something like that. Yeah. Or just walking, some trails to give you some elevation change.
I regard myself as a pretty good swimmer, but when I go out to Colorado and we do swimming out there, I can go not even half as long. Like I do I do a quarter mile, and I'm like, I can't breathe.
Yeah. Yeah, the air out here is rough, man. I mean, just in Denver alone, you're already at like 5,300 feet
Yeah.
above sea level. When you come out to where I am, you're at like 6,000 ish,
Okay.
maybe. And then you start heading towards the mountains. I mean, before you know it, you're 9,000 feet in elevation, and it
Yeah.
doesn't even feel like it
That's cool.
until you start breathing and huffing and puffing.
Okay, so we talked a lot about like where you came from, your origin, your growth, your
Mm.
big breaks. What's the future of your content? What's the future of your community look like?
Yeah, so I'm gonna definitely ride out Destiny all the way till its end.
Mm,
Um, I think we all know that. I don't really see any reason why the next couple years of Destiny, whether they continue to just build off of this game and rebrand it as Destiny, or whether they come out with an official Destiny. These are questions that we don't really know yet.
mm-hmm.
But whatever happens with Destiny, I'll stay on board with that, just because the game has been such a huge part of my life, and we love it dearly. But after Destiny's over, honestly, just stream whatever, variety stream. I mean, really, the goal, if you're looking at it from a more business standpoint, is gather a large enough following to, where the point where you can just play whatever games you want,
Yeah.
and you'll be okay. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
You'll still be able to support yourself and stuff like that. But that's pretty much it. I mean, I don't really have any long-term goals for specific games other than just being a more variety and sort of playing whatever comes out, whatever's hot. I think somebody that I do take a lot of inspiration from as far as like building a community is Goth.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh
really
yeah.
like how he takes games that nobody really knows about, and he starts to form a foundation of a community. And Goth and I have started to build a relationship over the last couple months.
Yeah.
And, I hope to potentially do stuff with him in the future as far as variety streaming, and help to build communities as well. Because I think what he does for different communities is really cool.
Absolutely agree. Like he's a forerunner
Hmm.
in our industry right now.
Yeah, definitely. Like for multiple games, almost everything. And I think that that's really cool, because you need somebody like that to start a base to build off of.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, I gotta say thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you sharing your story with me and
Yeah.
with our community. So hopefully it's an opportunity for people to get to know you better.
Yeah. Thank you. Like I said, thanks for having me on. It's fun to talk about this kind of stuff.
Sure.
And
Hey,
I think it's really cool what you're doing, because a lot of people from the community, there's a lot of community overlap, especially in Destiny.
yeah.
And people are very interested in the people that they support and the people that they watch every day. So I think what you're doing is pretty cool for the viewers.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, well, maybe with Cross Save coming out, I can have the opportunity to raid with you one day.
Oh, dude, for sure, man. I say it all the time. I need to play with more people, more people that stream, because I don't do it enough.
Yeah, I'll come hit you up sometime.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, man. I
Definitely.
appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.